Joshua chapter 8, starting in verse 1, it says, "And the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee, and arise, go up to Ai, and see, I have given into thine hand the king of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. And thou shalt do to Ai and her king as thou didst unto Jericho and her king. Only the spoil thereof and the cattle thereof shall ye take for a prey unto yourselves. Lay thee an ambush for the city behind it." So Joshua arose and all the people of war to go up against Ai, and Joshua chose out 30,000 mighty men of valor and sent them away by night. And then we're going to skip ahead verse 24 and 25. Same chapter, verse 24 and 25. "And it came to pass, when Israel had made an end of slaying all the inhabitants of Ai in the field in the wilderness, wherein they chased them, and when they were fallen on the edge of the sword until they were consumed, that all the Israelites returned unto Ai and smote it with the edge of the sword. And so it was that all that fell that day, both of men and women, were 12,000, even all the men of Ai." And let's go ahead and pray. Lord, I want to thank you for the time we can take in your word tonight, Lord. And I do pray that you will use me tonight, Lord. Help me to have your words tonight, Lord. And I pray that you will help me not to get in the way of the message this evening, Lord. I pray this in your name. Amen. You can go ahead and be seated. I know I kind of jumped in the middle here, and I did that on purpose. I'll explain a little bit as we go. But we jumped in kind of right after the defeat at Ai. Up to this point, up to when they got defeated at Ai, the children of Israel are kind of, if you will, they're kind of riding on that momentum high. They've just recently had the crossing of the Jordan River, which was a monumental time for the people. This is something that really is years in the making. It had been promised years previously, but between then and now, you have had the time of bondage in Egypt, and then you had the wilderness journey, and then 40 years before this, they had come right to the brink of the water and didn't get to pass over and had to spend 40 more years wandering. So this is huge, that they finally get to cross over, and then add to it that the way they're able to cross the Jordan is in a way that can only be described as miraculous. This is, for them, the second time that they've been able to have a water crossing like this, but this is not normal. So, this is a miraculous way to enter the country, and now they've just had, shortly before this, their first victory at Jericho, which was a victory that we've looked at in messages in the past that militarily doesn't work, and yet God gives them the way, the method that he wants them to use, and they follow his will, and he gives them an amazing victory. A victory that the victory at Jericho sets the surrounding nations on notice that there's something different about these people. When you win a battle without actually having to swing a sword, that sets people on notice that, hey, there's something different about this people, and really more than that, there's something different about their God. Sends out a warning that their God has already promised them this land, and they are coming to take it. And they are at kind of the point after Jericho that things are looking really good. And again, they're kind of riding that momentum high of things are finally kind of going our way, and things are happening how we want. And then the defeated Ai. I mean, they go from everything is going great and we're kind of on this mountaintop to they get defeated at Ai, an area that should have been, or a battle that should have been simple. The natural thing for people when they face defeat is to give up. Especially when you go from a momentum swing like that everything's good till you fall flat on your face. The natural thing when we face defeat is to give up. It's to stop trying. You see it all the time. You see it in kids, that kids have some new thing that they're trying to learn, and at first it is it's new and it's exciting, but then they come to the first difficulty with it, and every kid has the same reaction. They want to quit. Teaching a kid to ride a bike. You know, my kids, the way we taught our kids to ride a bike without training wheels is I told them, if you can learn to ride a bike without training wheels, I buy you a brand new bike. That's your incentive. And, you know, the promise of a new bike, well, that's an exciting thing. And, you know, the idea of riding without training wheels, that's an exciting thing. So every kid, or pretty much every kid at least, I'm sure there's some that aren't, I think every kid wants to be able to do that. But the first time they fall and scrape their knee, every kid is ready to give up. Because it's exciting, and I want to have a new bike, but that hurts. And after, you know, 30-plus minutes or an hour or days of the dad running back and forth beside the bike, he's pretty much ready for the kid to give up. But the kid, that first fall, and they don't want to ride a bike anymore. All of a sudden, there is a defeat, and that defeat hurt. And they're ready to give up. You see it in kids. You see it in adults. For some, you see it in their marriages, that marriage isn't exciting. And when your marriage is working right, there's absolutely nothing better. But in marriage, there comes some times that are less than victorious. It's not all honeymoon. When those times come, a lot of people are just ready to give up. They had a defeat, and they don't know how to move past it. Some adults, you see it in a job. Again, they get a new job, and it's exciting because it's new, but work is workish, and so they give up when it gets hard. You see it in new Christians, that they get saved, and again, it's new and it's exciting. They're excited and they want to be busy for God, but then that first defeat comes, whether it's giving back into some sin that they had tried to stop, or discouragement from something or from someone, and they fall away. They give up. Here's what I want to look at tonight. Defeats will happen. I know that sounds super negative, but it's true. Defeats will come. It doesn't matter how successful a person is or how victorious their life seems. Everyone faces times of defeat. I spent some time in studying for this, looking at some famous generals in history, and you know, ones who are known for success. Some considered top generals of their time, and yet they all faced defeats. I have a couple of examples. MacArthur, credited with the success of the Pacific Theater, despite having inadequate supplies and troops, played a major role in victories both in World War I and II. A man with a lot of victories in his career, but he also played a major role in the Korean War, which maybe isn't called the defeat, but was. Or a man like Eisenhower, who had a long, successful military career, went from there to being president of our country. Many would see that as a successful life. But most often what he's remembered for is his failure to defuse the Cold War. Here's the point. Defeats happen. They are unavoidable. The question is not, will you or won't you have losses and defeats in your life? I'm not going to bring a message of, here's how to avoid ever having defeats in your life, because they're going to come. The question is, how will you respond after them? Joshua and the children of Israel, realistically, Joshua and the children of Israel have a couple of options. That they could have around and run back across the river to the desert like they kept threatening to do, or they could move on. And I want to look at what are you going to do after defeat. Three things that I want us to see this evening. The first, very simply, get up. When you've fallen down, get up. Look at verse 1 with me. The Lord said unto Joshua, fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee, and arise. Go up to Ai. See, I have given into thine hand the king of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. Verse 1 says it here. Joshua wants to lay down and lick his wounds and complain about the defeat that just hit him. God's response to him is, get up and get back at it. Lying there, wallowing in your defeat, does no good. doesn't help anything. This has been a lot easier with my sons than it is with my daughter. I'll admit that. But when my boys especially were little and they'd fall and scrape their arm or they'd hurt themselves or whatever, a kid's first reaction is to lay on the ground and cry about what hurts. The first reaction is normally look and make sure somebody saw that I fell down and hurt myself, and then I'm going to lay here and cry and complain about what hurts. Growing up, my dad would make a big deal about how awesome your goose egg was that was on the side of your head, or how great this scratch was. You're lucky, maybe that'll make a scar type thing. My method has been with my sons, telling them, get up and show me your guns. Let's see your muscles. Now get back to playing. You're fine. Because just laying on the ground in agony never helped anyone. I should have. I thought about it. I should have put it on the screen. I have a picture of Kaylee. She would have probably been angry had I put the picture up there, but I should have. Who had just got hit in the head with a rake from her big brother swinging a rake. Looking back at it, I probably should have taken her to the ER for stitches. Instead, I took a picture of her and sent it to Lisa, who was away at a ladies' retreat. But blood running down her head. Here's this little girl who wouldn't let me clean it up until I took a picture of her flexing her muscles, because that's what she had heard me say the whole time. Because I had taught that laying there crying does no good. Realistically, I would challenge you. Come up with an example. Don't right now, please, because if you do and say it, it's really going to mess up this example. So don't right now. But I'd challenge you to come up with an example where laying on the ground wallowing in your pain has helped anyone. It doesn't. The same is true when we have a defeat in life. Laying on the ground crying about your defeat won't help anything. What do you do after a defeat? You get up and stop your whining. Looking at Joshua, what good would it have done if the children of Israel, now in the promised land, had decided that after this defeat, we just can't muster the people to do anything else. We crossed the river, and we won at Jericho in a mighty way, and now we've lost at Ai, and we just can't. So rather than moving forward and taking the land that God has promised us, we're just going to stay here in the ruins of Jericho crying over what just happened at Ai. Now, their enemies would have seen that as an opportunity and as a weakness and would have destroyed them. Now, they needed to stop their whining and be able to move on, because the problem with whining is all about me. I'm not going to have us go back there right now. If you go back and read in chapter 7, after the defeat at Ai, Joshua, Bible tells us, he rents his clothes and falls on the ground, and the whining, and I'm going to call it that, the whining that Joshua does is all I-related. It's all Joshua saying, what am I going to do? And honestly, if we're honest with ourselves, our whining after a defeat is exactly that same thing, crying over what this means for me. So what do I do after a defeat? Get up and stop whining. You get up and stand. I have in my notes, I don't have any problem admitting, except I'm hesitant to. I am that cold, mean dad, I guess, when my boys fall down again and they're laying there on the ground crying. There are some parents that are that nice, kind, compassionate, and their kids lying on the ground, and so they get down on the ground with them and, oh, are you okay? I'm not. I'm just not. You can ask Josh. That's just not me. I would walk over and stand up. Boy, I can't understand you when you're crying. Stop crying so I can actually figure out what in the world is going on with you. I know it sounds terrible. It's the way I am. Get up and stand. Lying on the ground never helped anyone. You aren't going to heal by lying on the ground crying about your pain. Okay, you have some blood running off of you. Lick it off and get up. It's fine. I told him that way more times than I can count. It sounds harsh, and the more I say it, the worse it sounds, but it's just the way my brain works. I grew up watching rodeo, this idea of, get up, and it's not going to help you, just lay on the ground. I grew up watching rodeo. Having a dad that used to ride bulls, really it was kind of fun watching rodeos that way, because you get the narrative of like the guy who's actually getting paid to narrate what's happening, and then you get your dad sitting next to you explaining everything that's happening. I remember one time we went to the Roy Rodeo, and they have the military bull riders there every year. You know, guys who have never been on a bull, and some other yahoo that they're in the military with says, you know, I bet you can't stay on that thing for 8 seconds. And so they decide, hey, I've never done this before. I have no idea what I'm doing, but strap me on a bull and let's see what happens. And one year, I remember we went, and a guy got bucked off, and I'm sure it hurt. He hit the ground hard and just laid there. You're on the ground. I understand it hurts. There's still a 2,000-pound angry bull running around. And I remember very well the announcer and my dad both yelling, "Get up and run, boy!" Because you may be hurt, but lying there isn't going to help. Defeats hurt. Defeats in life hurt. And sometimes after a defeat, it feels like, boy, I just hit the ground hard. I just want to lay here a little while. But that's not the way to get over a defeat. May I say, a spiritual defeat is no different. We face spiritual defeats. Don't lay on the ground crying over it. Get up, stop your whining, and stand back up. What do you do after a defeat? Number one, get up. Number two, seek God. Chapter 7, turn back to chapter 7 with me, verse 6 and 7. Joshua rent his clothes and fell to the earth upon his face before the ark of the Lord until eventime, he and the elders of Israel, and put dust upon their heads. And Joshua said, Alas, O Lord, wherefore hast thou at all brought this people over Jordan, to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites, to destroy us? Would to God we had been content and dwelt on the other side Jordan. Notice, Joshua didn't, after this, because this is right after they got defeated Ai, Joshua didn't go to his counselors. They didn't suffer defeat, and he goes to the wise men to see what's wrong. If you remember, before Ai, that's what he did. Before Ai, he went to, those advisors who said, oh, well, we don't need to bother all the people with Ai. It's just a small place. We'll go handle this on our own. But after this defeat, Joshua didn't go run to his advisors and to his counselors to consult them. Joshua didn't go to his generals, to his military people, and go find them and get a debriefing on what happened in Ai. This is supposed to be such an easy win, and we were supposed to not even have to send everyone, and we wound up getting beat here, and men died, and fathers and sons didn't come home. What went wrong? He didn't go cry to his family, telling them how hard it is to be a leader of these people, crying about, they just don't, or just doesn't understand what went wrong. No, defeat came, and Joshua knew where to go. Joshua ran straight to God. I mentioned this a moment ago. I don't believe Joshua handled it right, because he runs to God, and God, why did you bring us here just to get beat by the Amorites? I wish we would have just stayed over there. He went to God complaining and upset that at what God had done, or that God hadn't done what he wanted. But while he went there kind of with the wrong motives, at least he went to the right place. When we face defeats, seek God. Seek God. Seek him for comfort. I've already said this repeatedly. Defeats hurt. There's no two ways about that. Joshua in this defeat lost men. He lost soldiers. That brings physical pain, obviously, for those hurt or injured or killed, but emotional pain for their families, for their leaders, for their nation. I have to think he lost some of the confidence of the people following him. Probably lost some confidence in himself. There are both physical and emotional pain when we take a defeat, but God can comfort. God can comfort, and God can show you how even a defeat is part of his plan and bring you where he needs you to be. I don't know how many times I've asked or I've been asked, if, that question. Everyone seems to ask this question at some point or another. If you could change anything, if you could do anything over again and do it differently, would you? No. Because even the things that I look back at and say, boy, that was a defeat in my life, and boy, that hurt. And I've had some of those. But I can look back at them and say, God used that hurt to bring me where I am. But only He can bring the comfort to see that. Seek God for comfort. Seek God for strength. Among other things, you know what this particular defeat did? When they lost at Ai, it reminded Joshua and the children of Israel how much they needed God. It reminded them how much they needed God. Like I said at the start of this message, they had just had some big victories and had gotten where they were feeling pretty good about themselves. If you remember, going into Ai, the reason this defeat happened, they did not seek God, or God, I think I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'll probably cover this again. They did not seek God, or I believe God would have pointed out the sin from after Jericho, but instead they got a big head about themselves and decided we don't need to bring God in on this battle because it's just a little one. They started kind of thinking, well, hey, we're pretty good. We're pretty strong. We can do this on our own. Good enough that they saw Ai and they thought, well, we don't need God. In fact, we don't even need the whole army. We have enough strength in just a small portion of our army to beat these guys. But this defeat reminded them they didn't have enough strength on their own. They needed God. Defeats in our life often remind us, or ought to remind us, of the same thing, because like the children of Israel, we forget pretty often how much we need God. It gets pretty easy that we get kind of in the routine of life and we get feeling pretty good about ourselves and about what I can do. This idea, well, I'm doing this Christian thing pretty good on my own, and we forget that I need God's strength. After defeat, seek God for comfort and for the pain. Seek God for strength. Seek God for direction. Look at chapter 8, verse 1 and 2 again. I know we read it earlier, but verse 1 and 2. Lord said unto Joshua, fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee, and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into thine hand the king of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. And thou shalt do to Ai and her king as thou didst unto Jericho and her king. Only the spoil thereof and the cattle thereof shall ye take for a prey unto yourselves. Lay thee an ambush for the city behind it. And he goes on from there. Notice what goes on here. They have a defeat. Joshua wants to cry about it. In chapter 7, God tells him, get up, deal with the sin in the camp. And then God gives Joshua the direction to go from there. That's what God, or what going to God will do. Going to God after a defeat, it'll give you comfort. It'll get you over the pain of that defeat. It'll strengthen you and help you recover, but it will also give you the direction to go forward. It'll give you the direction to be able to keep moving forward. What do you do after defeat? Get up, seek God, and then lastly this evening, and I've kind of alluded to it throughout the message, move forward. Move forward. Have you ever noticed God doesn't give them time to sit back and recuperate from the defeat? You ever notice that? There's no healing time. There's the time where they need to deal with the sin that's in the camp, but God doesn't say, deal with the sin that's in the camp, and then, take some time to lick your wounds here for a while. Why don't you just go ahead and kind of hang back by Jericho for a little bit? You've already won that one, so it's going to be easy here. Why don't you just stay here where it's easy for a minute and recuperate a little bit? God doesn't allow time for them to just kind of sit and complain about what happened or stew over what's going on, or time to even grow complacent in the place that they are, because that could have happened. The next step is going to be hard. You're going to have to face the same place that just beat you. In Jericho, at least before you destroyed it, that's a pretty nice place. Maybe we just stay here. He doesn't give them time to grow complacent in the place that they are. They have the defeat, they correct the sin, and it's time to move forward. It's what to do after suffering a defeat. You move forward. Regardless of what that defeat may be. Whether that's I'll use the example of whether that's a relationship defeat, a problem at home. You fix the problem, you seek God, and you move forward. Lisa and I have, I honestly believe, Lisa and I have a great marriage. But like any marriage, I'm not perfect. Therefore, it's not perfect. It would do neither of us any good to focus on the challenging days and just sit there, licking our wounds, focusing on, oh, well, today was a rough day. What helps is fix the problem. Don't sweep it under the rug. Fix the problem and move forward. That could be used in the realm of spiritual defeat. Every one of us is just a saved sinner. You'll have days you fall. It does no good to lay on the floor crying in your self-pity. Get up, seek God, fix the problem, and move forward. It could be any other kind of defeat as well. That fits. For Joshua and the children of Israel, there was still much work to do. While they had seen victory at Jericho, they had just gotten into the promised land. They've just begun. There are victories to be won. There is land to be taken. Simply put, there is work to be done. There was still a lot to be conquered for God. For us in here tonight, there is work to be done. There's still lands to be taken. There's still souls to be won. Move forward. Move forward. I'm going to kind of conclude this evening. Defeats will happen. We don't like them. They hurt. Often they will leave a scar that might always be there. Those I think of in our passage tonight. The men who died at Ai, they were forever lost. It's not as if just because, Joshua went to God and they fixed the sin in the camp and they moved forward. It's not like just because they fixed all those things, the men came back. No, they died in battle and were lost. But it serves no purpose to lie on the ground crying over defeat. So what are you going to do when you get knocked down? When you face defeat? What we ought to do is get up, seek God, and move forward for it. Let's pray. Lord, I pray that you will, Lord, help us to really grasp a hold of this. Lord, it is maybe not something we like to think about, but it's a reality in life that we face defeats. We face defeats in life. We face defeats spiritually, in times that we stray, times that we fall on our face, times that we don't serve you like we ought to, Lord. And help us, Lord, to grasp this idea that rather than when those defeats come, and rather than when we have those times that, man, this hurts, rather than just laying there on the ground crying over the defeat, Lord, help us to learn to get up, to seek you, and to move forward serving you. There's still much work to be done. This isn't the time for the child of God to lay on the ground and complain about how hard it is and how much it hurts. This is the time for us to be busy serving you. Praise in your name. Amen.
All right, why don't you stand tonight with your heads bowed and our eyes closed. Every time the Word of God is preached, there's an opportunity for you and I to make decisions, and there really are some choices to be made tonight, aren't there, in our lives. Get up, seek God, fix the problem, move forward. I don't know where you might be in that step, in that stage, one of those 4 stages, but tonight would be a great time to say, Lord, I want to take the next step. I want to do, I want to be close to you. I want to be right with you. So, Lord, I'm coming tonight. As we begin to sing the invitation song, we invite you to come and spend time with the Lord.